And we are live. Welcome for another Hump Day edition of Foundations of DeFi. I'm your co-host Marlon, and here with me I have the father of DeFi. How you doing today, Reggie?
I'm all right.
Just all right. Another fine Wednesday, sir.
Okay. Well, something. I'm wonderful, actually. I'm in
There we go. There
pretty
we
good
go.
health. I got energy, muscles, vitality. I got my brain. I got loving children. I even
I
have
hear it.
parents. So
We haven't seen you in the gym the last couple of weeks, so just got to make sure your mental and your physical are in check.
yeah, I haven't been in the gym the last couple of weeks either. So, but I've been at the beach and with the kids. It's natural exercise.
So my game's about to catch up to you. That's all I hear there.
Watch your mouth, son, but that's all right.
we started discussing some of your team's research into USDC, and I seen some of your tweets last week going into this week, and it seems like they're rated as a AAA, but you're saying that AAA rating is overrated for them.
Well, let's be specific. They're not rated at all by a rating agency that I know of. Okay. Mm-hmm. But they tout themselves as being invested in AAA assets. And before I go on, you know how the web works. I don't want everybody to think, oh, Reggie's trying to take down Circle or he's attacking Circle. The Circle situation was brought to my attention. I looked into it. I saw a couple of holes and weaknesses. I threw it to my team of analysts and forensic accountants. They saw more holes. They agreed with me independently. And that's what it is. So this has nothing against Circle, nothing against USDC. It's called research and facts, which is something you don't really see a whole lot of these days in the crypto realm. So I just want to be clear on that. Circle touts that they back their USDC primarily with cash and US treasuries and cash equivalents. Okay. That is, in my opinion, implicitly stating or implying that Circle reserves are AAA. Hence, USD reserves are AAA assets, short-term treasuries, cash, etc. Hence, implying that USDC is a AAA risk. That's what I meant. That is also not true, from my opinion. I'll give you an example, okay? I have a business. My business is losing a bunch of money, and I have a bad habit, right? I have a drug habit, and I tend to smoke up a lot of my profits, okay? And sniff a lot of my profits up. It's a bad habit. But I do have a lot of money that I took from a bunch of clients, and I took that money and I invested it in treasuries. So the money is sitting in treasuries, right? The safest possible investment, quote unquote, we're not going to get into that, possible. That does not mean that the stuff that those treasuries are backing are a AAA risk, because my risk is now intermingled with that. So yes, the backing is AAA, but it's being run by a coke sniffing pothead who has a habit of losing money and sniffing up his profits. So do you think that giving me your money, you get a AAA risk in return? Is that true?
Not at all.
Why not? Why not?
Because it sounds like the money gonna be gone before it's even there, and it's gone.
Right. So there's a difference between the collateral being AAA and the operation or the product itself being AAA. You have to take all the risks in consideration. Okay, all the risks, not just the reserve collateral risk, but the operating risk. And in the case of Circle and many other stablecoin operations, it's an operating risk that's a greater risk. You face more of a chance of losing access to your money or losing your money from Circle's operations going bad than you do from taking principal loss on less than AAA ratings. Suppose it was high quality corporates. There's a greater chance of losing money, but you still have a much greater chance of Circle going out of business. Give you two hypotheticals, right?
So are you saying that that your money's, well, it'll be a better investment going into a lower rated company, an actual rated company than Circle? Is that what you're insinuating? Or I guess I'm going with the story.
What you're doing is you're actually putting your money into a lower rated investment.
Mm-hmm.
Circle as an operating company, they're the one. Circle's the only one who can burn USDC tokens. They're the only ones who can mint USDC tokens, and they're the only ones who can redeem USD tokens. So in order to get these USDCs, right, or redeem them, you have to go through Circle. If Circle goes bust, how do you redeem your USDCs? Who do you go to?
Hey, BlackRock, I guess.
BlackRock, I don't see anything on any of this literature that says BlackRock deals with tokens. BlackRock
Right, exactly.
is okay. So we could get to BlackRock in a second. So chances are, if Circle goes bust, okay, you'd have to go to the bankruptcy courts and stand in line. Now, it's a possibility. Circle says that their assets are segregated. So it's a possibility that you may be protected from bankruptcy, fighting with other creditors in bankruptcy. I don't believe that because I haven't seen firm evidence of it. But let's give them the benefit of the doubt, and that's the case. You still don't have access to your money, right? You need somebody who will be able to redeem USDC. And that means you have to check to see if your USDC is valid, et cetera. So you give Circle $1 million of your money, or 60 million, or 370 million, or 700 million, like these creditors in and out of 3AC, 3 Hours Capital, and Voyager, and BlockFi, et cetera. And then they go bust, you lose access to your money. You may get it back in a couple of years. You may get it back at the end of the year. But is that a AAA risk? Taking the risk of waiting several years to get your money back?
It doesn't sound like it to me. And what?
Right.
And just for the audience sake, what is an example of a AAA rated investment?
A 3-month U.S. Treasury is a perfect example. So you give your money to the U.S. government for 3 months, they give you a Treasury bill, okay? And at the end of 3 months, you have a guarantee from the U.S. government that you'll get your money back, plus every 4 basis points of interest they may choose to pay you, okay? It's a chance that it wouldn't happen, but that chance is very, very small relative to the chance of Circle going out of business. So that's a AAA risk, okay? Now, Circle is using the fact that they invest in a AAA risk to give, and I haven't seen them say it outright, but they're implying that because we invest in AAA risk, this entire product is a AAA risk. No, it's not. It's a AAA risk being managed by a junk status risk. I would consider Circle a junk status company.
So what are the what are those implications that that they're putting out there that they are a AAA risk?
What are the what?
What are the implications that they're putting out that that you're saying that these are assumptions, or these are what a AAA risk investment would speak to?
So the implication is what happens if I'm right, or what are the examples? I'm not sure. I'm not clear on your question.
I'm sorry. Examples from Circle, like things that you saw that they implied. Okay. I got you. Sorry about that.
So the biggest is that they keep harping on the quality of the reserve. Okay, and they say mostly cash. Suppose it's 100% cash, which is probably the safest you can get. You have to sell treasuries off. Suppose it's 100% cash, over collateralized. Suppose you give Circle $100 million. And they collateralize that with $110 million worth of actual dollars in a bank account, as liquid as it gets, okay? Circle goes bust, you still don't have access to it. It doesn't matter if it's $400 million backing $100 million. If you don't have access to it, you don't have access to it.
Right. You're dead in the water regardless.
Right. So that's why you have to know. That's why every time I go,
well, I'm a dog whisperer, so maybe he hears me. That's what it is.
Okay. He's chewing my USB cord. So that's why you always have to take into consideration the entity risk, including the operating risk of the entity that's running the business. Now, what are the chances of Circle going bust? Well, on the last show, I think we discussed that in their SEC filings, their auditor report gave an ongoing concern warning, which is dangerous. So ongoing concern is a business that can keep running. And they say they had serious doubts about Circle being an ongoing concern without additional capital. Lo and behold, BlackRock and Fidelity and a bunch of other entities invested in the Circle and gave them $441 million, right? Saved them, and they gave them the liquidity they needed.
I'm gonna pull up. Keep going. I'm gonna pull up that article that kind of goes into detail about this that you shared as well.
Okay. Now, remember, articles have the bias of the reporter, so you want to try your best to go to primary sources. So you could go to Circle's actual SEC filings. Okay, but we'll work with that for right now. But just remember, especially if that article is on an entity that has significant investments in these companies, such as CoinDesk or Cointelegraph, owned by, the big kahuna guys. So, so Circle got a $441 billion investment. Okay, took them out of the ongoing concern fear category. Okay, and then they lost that same amount of money that year by the end of the year. So if you're in trouble because you are at an ongoing concern warning from an auditor and you needed a lot of money, you got almost $500 million, and then you lose almost $500 million by year end, you are now worse off than you were before.
Yeah, because look, the money that you got to keep growing, it's already gone now. So now you owe the people who have already bought in, plus those new investors.
So now you're still strapped economically, and you owe twice as much. Now, one of the there are a lot of pundits who came in to take Circles back. I can tell that they probably had some type of connection to Circle, but I could be wrong. They say, well, that was an accounting loss. It wasn't a cash loss. Okay, you have to be very careful with that. Accounting rules are there for a reason. It was an accounting loss. They're right, it wasn't a cash loss because the convertible note that they signed, all right, and sold to get that money said that as their performance metrics decline, the outstanding amount of the debt increases to protect the investors. So the reason why they owe twice as much is because their operating metrics have declined. So, same effect. Economically, they're still losing value.
Now we're talking about just Circle as a whole, not just the USD coin, correct? I mean, because we've seen. Okay, just want to make sure we're clarifying that.
We're talking Circle as a whole, but Circle is the only sole administrator of the USD coin. Okay.
And so, and to that point, I want to, one thing that they mentioned in this article was that the establishment from BlackRock, where is it at? Right here. This would involve the establishment of a new BlackRock managed government money market fund, the Circle Reserve Fund, through which BlackRock will become a primary asset manager of USDC cash reserves.
Right.
So essentially, when you speak to those cash reserves that you mentioned earlier, all that specifically is being managed by BlackRock.
Right, it is. So that explains why BlackRock invested in Circle. They invested in Circle. What does Circle get out of that investment? BlackRock invested as part of a syndicate with Fidelity and a bunch of other companies. Okay, so they got $441 million. Let's assume BlackRock led that with 10%. So BlackRock put $44 million in, right? Just an assumption. I don't know. Okay. If you take a look at Circle's USDC, if you go to CoinMarketCap, see what the outstanding amount of USDC is. It should be somewhere around $45-50 billion.
Let's pull it up and keep going. I'll pull it up while you're still going.
So let's assume it's 44 billion. I got to keep the numbers round. Okay. BlackRock invests $40 million. Okay. And for that $40 million, they get to onboard $40 billion worth of capital to run. Okay. And they charge 10 basis points. Okay. 100 basis points, whatever the amount is. It looks like BlackRock chunk of no. Should have never let the dog out. It looks like BlackRock is going to be able to get their money back in 1 year. And after that year, they continue to get a recurring annuity stream. So that investment to BlackRock is not so much an investment, it's more of a value investment. You put $1 in, you get $1 right back out. You get $1 every other year. You have a new ongoing business. Okay. On top of that, if you look at the BlackRock Circle Reserve Fund prospectus, which is what it's called, you can see where BlackRock and Circle could do a whole bunch of things that you probably never even dreamt of. More importantly, is the things they could do are not analogous to a AAA risk fund. They can employ leverage as long as that leverage that they pay is less than the amount of income they expect out of what they bought with the leverage, which means they can lever up 5 to 1 and they could buy treasury yields if the treasury yields are yielding 1%. Okay. They lever up 5 to 1. So they have a 5% expected return. So as long as they're paying 3.5% for that leverage, it's worthwhile for them. What happens when you lever up on something and it moves against you?
You lose money. You lose.
Okay.
Well, you said it moves against you, right?
If it moves against you, that means that for every dollar you lose $5. Right? Dang. For every percentage point that goes against you, you lose 5% because you're levered up. You multiply both your gains and your losses times 5. Okay. These guys lever up much harder than that. Their levers go up to 20 times leverage. Okay. Using leverage in a AAA rated safe fund is oxymoron. Okay. The reason why you use leverage is because you're reaching for yield, you're reaching for profit. Why would they do that? Circle's source of profit is reaching for yield. Remember, Circle's not giving you an investment. They're giving you a stable coin. You give them $1, they're giving you an IOU to get $1 back. And that's it. Correct. Not getting interest on it. What their business model is to take your dollar and make money off of that dollar. So when they give you $1 back, they keep whatever profits they made out of playing with that dollar.
Which is what we see what the regular banks do nowadays.
Exactly. Now, leverage is one red flag. Okay. Number 2,
and to that leverage point, when things are leveraged, we're saying that's a sign that it's already a risky investment in itself, correct?
Right. If you're going to leverage something, you defeat the whole selling point of using AAA rated treasury securities. Okay. And now they can leverage and buy more treasury securities, but you just added significant risk. Number 2, they use reverse repos. So a repo is I can't think of the word. So
I was about to say, I need you to educate me on the reverse repos because on MSNBC.
So it's like this, right? You could take collateral. Let's say you have $100 million in treasuries. Okay. You sell those treasuries to me. So I take $100 million $100 million worth of treasuries. I buy them from you, right? With the promise that you have to buy them back tomorrow for $101 million. So you're giving me an overnight loan, right? Or I'm giving you an overnight loan
for
with
1%.
a $1 million cost to it. Now, it's not really a loan. It's really a purchase and repurchase. Okay. So the repo is a repurchase. Okay. So I'm buying the $100 million in treasuries from you, and you promise to buy them back from me in a short amount of time, overnight, right, for $101 million. So you're paying $1 million for a $100 million loan. Okay, gotcha. So for you, it's a repo.
So what's the purpose of that though?
The purpose is lending. So you get to lend money to somebody for a very short rate, for a certain cost. That $1 million difference in the price is analogous to interest rate, 1% interest rate. Okay, so if you need money, you need some money short term, you need some cash, some quick cash, you go into a repo arrangement, okay, or repurchase arrangement. Okay, so I give you $100 million. This time tomorrow night, you give me $101 million. So you see where you get cash you use, and then you just have to send it back. This goes 3 days is the max, I think, for short-term repurchase agreements in commercial paper. This is also known as commercial paper as well. Now, here's the risky part on that. The collateral is usually very high-grade debt. Treasuries are very high-grade corporate debt. But just because the collateral is high-grade, doesn't mean that the person that I'm doing business with is high grade. So
Right.
you, Marlon, could be the crackhead. Okay, away with the dog, please. You, Marlon, could be the crackhead, pot smoking, destroyed 50% of all the businesses he's been in, entrepreneur, but you happen to have $100 million in treasuries. Okay. I buy that $100 million in treasuries and you sign an agreement that says, I'll buy it back for you tomorrow night for $101 million. Tomorrow night comes, you're like, well, my son has piano lessons, so I'm not going to be able to make it right now, maybe tomorrow, right?
Mm-hmm.
You just defaulted on that. You defaulted on that loan, not because this was a AAA rated risk. It wasn't. The collateral was AAA rated. The risk was in you. And you happen to be a C rated risk, a junk bond risk, a junk rating. This is the same example I've been using with Circle. Circle is a very risky company, but the collateral that they're using as a reserve is high collateral, but it's irrelevant because you have to mix Circle's risk in with that collateral risk. Just like we have to mix the risk of doing business with you and with the risk of those treasuries still be having the same value. Okay.
So basically the risk of their business plan and everything that they have going on is what's making the risk of the collateral of the actual USDC coin basically
higher risk, lower quality. Yes. It's contamination. It's called contamination. Okay. So the fact that they're doing repos and the guys are Twitterati experts, guys are telling me I have an MBA in this and I've been doing that and that. Yeah, okay, whatever. But you should be able to see, right? If you're doing a repo, that means unless 100% of your repos are done with the US government, that means that you're taking on corporate entity risk. Because that means you're doing those deals with somebody else and guaranteed whoever that somebody else is not going to have the same risk profile as the US government. Why? Because the US government could just print money. They're never going to default because they'll just print the money to give it to you. Okay. Right. Or they'll blow you up and you'll never be around to say that you defaulted because they blew a hole in the entire country. Okay. So that's a risk that's not openly disclosed, but is obviously there. Whenever you're doing repos and that repo is not with the government, there's corporate entity risk there, commercial entity risk. Second red flag. Third red flag is they are allowed to do business with affiliated entities. So if you take the second risk and you mix it with the third risk, let's suppose Circle does need money. Okay. They got that $441 million investment and they burned through it and lost it plus more by the end of the year. Now they need an $800 million investment. Okay. They can not break any of the rules of their so-called, low risk reserve fund. And they can do those overnight borrowings. Mm-hmm. That's a repo.
So who are those close entities that they would be doing that with though?
Them.
BlackRock, you're talking about just with them.
Yeah.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Circle. Yeah. BlackRock does a repo and does a reverse repo with Circle. So they loan Circle that money overnight. Okay. And Circle could repay it back. If they need a longer loan than overnight, well, they're allowed to do business with affiliated entities. BlackRock and Circle are affiliated because BlackRock is Circle's investment manager. Right. This is what New York AG was accusing Tether of doing. And Tether
sounds like too much internal workings going on behind the scenes.
It's not behind the scenes. It's sitting right on. All you have to do is pull the SEC filings and read them. Nobody does it.
So is that type of relationship between a money management firm and another company, is that seen often in just like the regular space outside of crypto?
I haven't seen it, but I don't do business with these type of arrangements because I just don't trust them. So it's not illegal because it's disclosed. But in the crypto world where everybody seems to know anything and nobody really wants to read anything, this stuff goes unnoticed. Right. Okay. But I can tell you one thing confidently, and I'm not picking on Circle, USDC is a risky asset. It really is.
And so looking at the comments, somebody has a question with that from Just Inform You. Shout out to Jake Fever in the comments as well. But from just to inform you, is USDC high risk to the point where you shouldn't store your funds in it? And if so, what's an alternative that's less riskier?
Well, I can't answer that question. Number one, that this is not investment advice, whatever, but I'm not gonna go through all that. Okay. In order to answer that question adequately, I have to know what your risk profile is. Okay. I take more risk than many, but I also do more research than most. I have a team of guys that do research and I know my stuff. Okay. So I take more risk because I understand more risk. You may have much more risk tolerance than I do because you have more liquidity, or you have a longer time horizon, or much less because you're about to retire next year, or you just don't care if you lose money. So, knowing one half of the equation doesn't allow you to get an answer.
Got you.
Okay. And you're not paying this either. So you get what you pay for.
Gotta hit the email for that. Another question from Jake Fever. But if Circle doing repo with 100% back US Treasuries and cash, if the repo loan is not paid back in USDC, the USDC is 1-to-1 still. They just lose interest return, right?
No. Let's suppose here. How much money does Circle have outstanding USDC?
And USDC?
Yeah, you say you looked it up on CoinMarketCap. Let's say it's $50 billion. Okay, that's $50 billion in USDC right now. Right? They do a $25 billion in reverse repos. Okay, the other side decides not to pay them back. Now, out of that $50 billion, now they have $25 billion because the other 25 was given to somebody who defaulted. Okay, so if everybody decided to call on their USDC loans, there's $25 billion to pay $50 billion in IOUs. Somebody's losing 50%, somebody might lose 100%. You understand what I mean?
Yeah. So I'm looking on CoinMarketCap too. Let me share my screen. So we're looking for the number of outstanding USDC tokens. Share my screen. You can share my screen. You can see my screen, Reggie?
I see it.
I didn't see. So we got circulating supply, total supply, but we're looking for outstanding tokens, correct?
Circulating supply should be good enough. What's the circulating supply?
Right now we're at 55.26 billion.
Okay, so $55 billion. Okay, so if they loan out $30 billion in repos, or there might be a cap for repos of like 30% or 40%. So let's take 30%. It's a cap. Okay, they loan out $15 billion in repos. Okay, and then the other side of that, their counterparty defaults. Right, they now only have $35 billion to pay $55 billion worth of USDC liability. Significant loss.
It's about $20 billion difference.
And the reason is because they loaned out a AAA rated collateral, but they didn't loan it necessarily to a AAA rated counterparty.
So really the risk is, like you mentioned earlier, the risk is more so in the investor themselves or in the counterpart themselves.
Yeah, right. The risk is who you do business with and what you're doing business with. You have to combine the risk. Another way of looking at it is, like I remember we were discussing tug of war, right? You play tug of war with a chain, and that chain is only as strong as its weakest link. So you have titanium steel links everywhere, but the last two links are made out of toilet paper. When you pull, it breaks. It doesn't matter how strong, how AAA rated the other links are, right?
Right.
Whole chain has to be strong.
And like you said earlier, we don't want to keep picking on Circle. And I know you did have some other things you wanted to discuss. So did you have any last thoughts on USDC and Circle?
Yeah, there's another guy who came up because I only spent a day and a half on this. I told one of my guys to do a deeper dive, but I'm pretty confident we're going to find a deeper dive, more of the same. But Circle has two big risks. They're rife, swimming in IP risk. The entire business is built upon what I consider other people's IP, which is potentially bigger than everything else. They could be shut down just because of that.
And when you say other people, that's not just yours, correct?
Not just mine. I am not going to say someone is in trouble for infringing on my IP because I don't want to be perceived as threatening. But I will discuss actual technologies and platforms. For instance, I believe tokenization is, or at least the transfer of a tokenized product is infringing upon my IP. Okay, I'm not going to say Circle is doing it, but I say a particular technology or product I believe may be infringing. But it's not just me. There are a couple of other people or entities. And it's interesting, those entities and or people similar to me are outside of the accepted mainstream. They're not part of the club. So it's going to be a very interesting year where, the club versus not part of the club may clash. You'll see.
Right.
Okay. Hopefully everybody likes me. Maybe let me in the club because everybody looks and acts and sounds just like me in the club, right? So
if not, just make your own club, Reggie. You can have your own VIP lounge.
I don't want to make clubs. I want to make it everybody's open and invited as long as you behave. That's how I am. Well, anyway, so also the definition of cash equivalents is very interesting. I believe, I'm not sure, but it's been alleged by others that when you go through the documentation from Circle and then Reserve and Circle's documentation, cash equivalents are defined as digital assets. So USDC can be potentially, if this guy is right, a cash equivalent. If that's the case, that's a circular argument. So Circle can invest your money in cash, treasuries, or cash equivalents, with cash equivalents being defined as more USDC. So they can
basically they'll take your money to give you USDC and then take that money to purchase more USDC.
Right, which is they're the ones who mint USDC. That sounds an awful lot like the traditional banking system making their own money, right? Mm-hmm. So if USDC is a cash equivalent, USDC is not a dollar, and doesn't have the attributes of a dollar. It's not backed by the U.S. government's military and economic might and geopolitical might. It's a token minted off the ERC 20 standard. You understand? So you can make that as you will, but if USDC is a cash equivalent according to Circle, that means a lot of those reserves.
Now, they don't sound like too strong reserves to me.
Yeah, but I have not verified that myself. Again, I took a day and a half out of looking into it. I may look into it because I may do a report on stablecoins. It'll be an IP report, but I'll merge the patent and IP portion with the obvious weaknesses, and that would make a lot of the stuff stand bare. It is amazing the stuff that's not noticed. Now, if it causes these asset values to drop, so be it, because they should be based on real values. If and when they go back up, they're going to go back up based on actual fundamentals, which is where they should be in the first place. When you have strong fundamentals and the price drops a lot, you should just consider it a buying option. You have 5 apartment buildings, you pay $1 million each for them. Each apartment building is throwing off $200,000 a year in income. That's $1 million a year you pay for $5 million in investments. You can't sell any of these apartment buildings for more than $55 next year for what the market goes dead. Do you care? You're making $5 million a year.
I got my cash flow coming in there. I'm good.
Yeah, if nobody wants to buy it, that's their mathematical error, right? But you're still making money because fundamentally there's value there, right? And eventually the value will either go back up or you sit there and mint $5 million a year for free forever. But nobody's going to allow you to do that because they're going to drive the price up. So the income is in line with normal investment margins, which would be the risk-free rate plus the risk premium. And the risk premium would be the risk it takes to hold real estate. So on to the next thing now.
Cool. So let me we got a couple more questions in here. Shout out to Seba Brown, shout out to Wendy Nichols in the chat, Smitty's Farms. Just a follow up from Jake Fever. My question is, if they loan out USDC, I guess he's saying they loan out the underlying collateral.
Right. Well, they can loan out USDC and they can loan out the underlying collateral, which is interesting. They loan out the USDC in their normal operations of trying to make money. Okay. But when they loan out the reserve behind the USDC, that's a big risk. Okay. Because you can lose that.
And then at that point, what's the USDC being backed by if you lost that?
Being backed by nothing because it was lost. So
can't divide by zero.
You don't gamble with the reserves. You don't. The reserves are there as a reserve. They're not there to speculate. But Circle has to gamble with them because that's the only way they can make money.
Right. From Country Club, isn't the other half counterparty vetted when determining if they enter into a repo agreement? There is a criteria, isn't there? Question mark.
So, yeah, they are. Was Lehman vetted, or Countrywide, or Bear Stearns, or Washington Mutual, Greece? Portugal.
And to your point, with these rating companies, we all got to take that with a grain of salt because they're probably working on their own self-interest and with things as well with some of these.
I'm going to show you. I don't have it. I'm going to show you how you vet a company. Okay.
Okay. Some free game. I'll take some free game.
You vet a company by making a request, and the company gives you the requisite data. AAA risk. Done. Understand what I mean?
It just handing them out. It's like playing spades.
Everybody who's interested in vetting companies for risk, do a search on YouTube, Reggie Middleton versus the rating agencies. And it's a very good documentary. And I go through how the rating agency game works and how they vet companies. Okay, you don't understand who the clients of the rating agency are. A lot of people think they're the clients. How much have you paid a rating agency?
Not a dime.
But it's exactly the value you're going to get out of that. Okay, you know who pays the rating agency? The guys are being
major corps.
Exactly, the guys are being rated pay the rating agencies, and that's who the rating agencies work for. So
just like the media that we refer to, the companies are funded into them.
Yeah. So Reggie Middleton versus the rating agencies on YouTube, and it's maybe like 4 minutes. So even for the Instagram attention disabled type, you could ask.
Right. From Shada Zulu, has the Coinbase report dropped yet, and is there a link?
I'm still working on it. I decided to expand the IP portion. When I drop it, I'll announce it on Twitter. Twitter is where I'm most active. Just follow me on Twitter. I'll probably do a YouTube video on it as well because it's going to be very offensive to a few people.
And last question for now from Seba Brown. If USDC fails, who will be left standing in the stablecoin category?
I don't know because honestly, the weaknesses in USDC are probably not unique to USDC. I think if I were to put together a backed stablecoin and I want to do it correctly, you could still make money off of it. You could still gamble off of it, but you can't have risk contagion. So you create a big fund, you put $100 to $50 billion worth of capital into a trust, okay? You create an operating company, an administrative operating company, and that company does the redemptions, the burning and the minting of the tokens. And that's all it does. You capitalize that company with $50 million, plenty of money. And all it does is mint, burn, and redeem tokens. That's it. Nothing fancy. And they charge a very small amount of money to do it, enough to keep going. That would be analogous to a utility, like your electric company utility or your power utility. How often do utilities go out of business? Almost never, because they don't do anything fancy. They charge you for electricity, they make electricity. That's it. Okay. And they're heavily regulated by the government. You don't even need regulation. That's all that company does. The assets for that trust, they don't sit on that company's balance sheet. That's a mistake. They're off balance sheet in a special purpose vehicle, which would be that trust, right? And all that company does is, mint tokens, go back and forth, and whatever money that company makes goes onto its balance sheet. So you have two separate entities, okay? And you have a large wall that separates the risk. Now you want to get fancy and make money and do lending with Bitcoin, collateralized yields and all that stuff. You could do it. You get a separate company and does all that, but it's using its own capital, it's risking its capital, right? And it doesn't touch the reserve fund, it's buying the tokens. So if you lose the tokens, you lose the tokens. That means the collateral is still backing. Now, to do that takes a little more complexity. The risk you're taking is naked risk because now you got to pay for your own losses. But you protect the people who actually purchase the tokens. Those tokens are just literally collateralized by regular dollars. Or treasuries are the riskiest thing I would go in would be 3-month treasuries. That would be the longest risk I take.
To me, Reggie, to kind of break all this down, it really just sounds like have your savings account, have 2 savings accounts, and only work on your checking account. That's all. That's
right. Basically, that's it.
Don't work out of the savings accounts.
You won't play with knives. Just make sure you cut your own fingers off and nobody else's. That's all.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, circling back to some of these other exchanges caught up in the IP bubble. What's on the horizon? Again, we're in this crypto winter. We mentioned, if a company or a project protocol, whatever, has good fundamentals, then they will push through, and it will still be relevant in some way, form, or fashion. But what's the current status of this IP bubble?
Well, I can't think of an exchange that is not infringing on somebody's patent.
Mm-hmm.
If you're trading Ethereum or Bitcoin or Solana or Cardano or whatever, there's a very strong chance you're infringing on somebody's patent. If you're using stable coins, there's a very strong chance you're infringing on somebody's patent. If you're trading through a DEX, there's a very strong chance you're infringing on somebody's patent. If you're trading NFTs, very strong chance you're trading on somebody's patent. So if somebody was in the business and decided to not license their patent at all, they go to court, they win, then you can't trade Bitcoin, Ethereum, so you can't trade most of the blockchains, NFTs, stable coins. What would these exchanges be doing for money?
At that point, they get any money from transaction fees and all of that, right?
Transaction of what? Because if you can't transact in something you don't own, and nobody's going to give you permission. And imagine if you took $100 billion or several $billion of public money as an investment.
It sounds like your operation's about to be shut down.
Yeah, it sounds like you got some issues, right? Right. I was going through my daughter, right? My daughter, I'm gonna be a snitch, and she didn't want to be on YouTube because she doesn't want to be famous or well known, because she doesn't want the problems that come along with it, such as like what her father had with a certain government entity that caused her family so much stress. I'm going to speak that for you, okay? But she's 16. She's very, very intelligent, much better at math than I am. And her 2 older brothers worked in the company as well. My second son knows the patent, how to use the patent, which is a very big step. My first son started back in 2014 with me, 2015, okay? And I have my daughter coming in, and I'm teaching her how to read and understand this patent and other complex patents. And she's going to draft her own and do a provisional patent filing. She's going into 12th grade when school starts. It is my opinion, this should be taught in the schools. Take trigonometry out, which nobody's ever used, okay, except for the occasional architect to do, and put the understanding of IP law and patent filing, trademark and copyright filing. That's my suggestion. Say hi, please, daughter.
Hello.
Okay, so she's going to she's going to remain off camera, but she is willing, without her father forcing her, which is not true, right? She is willing to walk your audience through how NFTs infringe on the Middleton 566 patent. NFT, the transferring of an NFT. Okay, so moving a little closer so they can hear you. Okay, so the NFT itself doesn't infringe, but if you transfer, or what's the term that's used in the actual patent?
Recharacterizing ownership. Or recharacterizes ownership.
So if you recharacterize the ownership of the NFT, it infringes. Okay. When you look at the definition of NFT, is that from the Ethereum site? Is that the terminology that was used?
Yes.
And that exact wording is used where?
On the patent.
Okay. The patent was initially filed in April of 2014, but it has a May 2014 priority date. Okay. The exact terminology has been used. So Mariama, from what you can think of, tell the audience what an NFT is. No vocal, no explain.
Non-fungible token, or a token that's not replaceable.
Okay, and the components of the NFT would be?
It has a data source and
From your memory, go ahead.
You got it.
Okay, so, and we just went through this like an hour ago. It's not simple, so I'm gonna help it through. So it has a data, it has a, it has a principal amount or value, okay? It has a data or data source, okay? And it usually has an expiration timestamp. The NFT usually doesn't, but when put it on any platform, it does, okay? You put those.
When you saying the NFT has a timestamp on the exchange, or what do you mean
on
by
a platform. Go to OpenSea or go to the NFT listing marketplace. List the NFT there. There's usually a maximum amount of time it could be there. 60 days, 90 days, etc. Okay.
Why is that?
So you don't have a bunch of junk NFTs that are sitting there forever cluttering the whole marketplace up.
So if it doesn't get minted, or if it's not
if it doesn't get
transferred
purchased,
off,
right,
and it's not transferred off the exchange, it's just burned.
The listing expires.
Got you.
So you can relist.
But it's still, you can relist it, but it's still available to be minted on the blockchain, right?
Right.
Gotcha.
Well, it's already minted on the blockchain, but when you put it up for sale, there's a expiry, and that's just to prevent stuff from being cluttered, which is necessary, because without that, you can imagine how many nonsense NFTs would clutter these marketplaces. Okay.
As much as it's already done.
So if you go through the patent, you go through patent claim. Do you remember the claim?
One.
Okay. So which country was it?
US.
So you go to the US patent claim 1, right? And go through each and every portion of the claim. My 16-year-old daughter walked through each and every portion of it, and she verified infringement of the transfer of the NFT. Okay. To give you examples of uses of NFTs, not saying that they're infringing, but what examples did we find?
On OpenSea.
In general, just using Google searches, the big company names.
Nike.
Who else?
Meta Birkins and Birkins.
Those are brand names of Hermes. Who else?
Adidas.
Adidas. Go ahead, run down as anybody can think of.
I'll help you out. Prada. Did you say Prada?
Okay. So these companies have actually been very, very aggressive. Okay. They've been aggressive in enforcing their trademarks. Nike is suing this guy named Rothschild. I think his first name might be Marlon. I can't remember, but Rothschild. Okay. No,
Boy,
Nike is suing StockX.
Doesn't Nike have they had some type of patent or rights to their like digital NFT shoes or something, didn't they?
They have a trademark, right? They're defending their trademark, which is the Nike swoosh and the names, etc. Those are trademarks. When I went to the NFT conference, all the lawyers would talk about trademark and copyright infringement, and they ignored the biggest infringement, which is patents. When I talked to them and confronted them with it, they said there is no patent infringement risk because they say NFTs are simple code and nobody has a patent on it. I said, I beg to differ. And they looked at me and said, I have one. They looked at me, you have a patent. I'm not gonna comment on why they would be shocked that I have a patent. But
we know.
that there's going to be a lot of feelings hurt because the patent infringement universe is much, much larger and much more expensive by far than the trademark infringement universe and copyright. Okay. My 6-year-old daughter, her first time around going through the patent with her father, at least, was able to go through and was able to show infringement using the NFT technology. Not a particular company, but the actual technology. Okay.
Right.
So if my 16-year-old daughter, who's on her summer break to go into 12th grade, can do it, all these high-powered law firms have failed these big companies. But luckily, I'm going to go around and show everybody how it's done. Okay.
Hey, I'm glad to hear it. And your daughter, shout out to you. you will be great in life. Just gonna go ahead and give you the early cheers.
She's going to help me. She helped me with the Coinbase a lot, actually. And she's also going to help do the NFT document. And she might even do her own NFT patent. We'll see.
Hey, well, that would be pretty dope, you know, because like you said, most people don't know patents or even how they work and how they're implemented within just society as we know it. So that would be a great achievement.
Yeah, and I'll admit my patent is pretty tough, but I'm on a mission, you know. It's gonna be one high-powered lady right
Hey, Black excellence. We love to see it.
here.
But well, Reggie, I think that's all we have for today with the people. We don't have any other comments or questions in the chat. So I think we'll go ahead and wrap it up for today. Did you have any last comments you want to leave with the people?
Be careful. If USDC does break, don't blame anybody but yourself. If you haven't read the terms of service and the SEC documentation, you know, just like everybody who got burned with BlockFi and Celsius, those are centralized entities. Those are shadow banks. You got burned, you know, you broke the cardinal rule of crypto. Ain't your keys, ain't your cheese. Okay. So, you know, I understand you lost money, got upset, but who got to realize who lost the money? Okay. Do not put your decentralized assets into a centralized entity, period. And do not put your decentralized assets into any entity without doing thorough research. If you don't have the time to do it, no problem. You realize the risk you're taking. There aren't services you could buy to research to my satisfaction. I used to do it with the traditional world when we warned about Bear Stearns and Lehman Brothers. I will consider doing it now. I just don't have the time because I'm so heavy in transfers, IP stuff. What I'm doing now is I'm doing fundamental analysis as a wrapper around the IP to show everybody it's nothing new. If there's enough demand and I can afford to put somebody on it, I'll do it for full time. And I'll start doing the warnings myself because there are other entities who are not doing it because they're too busy doing other things. So, okay.
Hey, well, we'll keep looking forward to your research. And you heard them, everybody. Read the fine print before you put your money where you where you think it's going.
Read the fine print before you read the big print because that's where the juice is.
Right.
Turn it over and look at the back. Trust me.
All good. Well, thank you again, Reggie, for another Hump Day edition of Foundations with DeFi, and we'll see you all next week, everybody.